do a demo?
I hope so. You know, it's always the risky part.
Yeah, that's. Does it rely on network?
Sorry? No, it doesn't need network.
Okay. So you take one uncertainty out. All right, why don't we get started? So microservices, Docker, and therefore chaos, right? So you're going to tell us how to avoid chaos, especially for a very large number of components. We have Balazs Soldos, I hope.
Something like that. Yes.
He's the co-founder of Servlet.
Yes.
And moved from Java EE to Spring and now to OSGi.
You learned your lesson, I see.
Right. That's been his progression, and he's happy about it. So tell us how to avoid the chaos.
Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Balazs Soldos, as I was introduced. I will not talk about microservices and Docker and stuff like that, but only about OSGi components, one OSGi framework, and how to avoid that when you work and something is missing and you don't know how to make that it's not a black box anymore. I'll talk specifically about this component model we developed, and we introduced it in 2014 on OSGi conference. To be honest, I was a bit disappointed in myself at that time because I talked about the features of this new component model and very deep details, but not about the cause why we developed it. And I think my message didn't go through. So I decided that this time I will not talk about how to set this thing, that thing via which configuration, but talk about reasons, causes, and do a bit of demo in the end of the speech. And I will try to be as clear as this woman was in the movie of Tarantino, my message to go through. So the question is raised why another component model had to be developed, because there was Blueprint. Not first, I don't know the time frame, but we started with Blueprint as we were Spring developers, and then we moved to Declarative Services, and suddenly lots of pain went away. I don't know, maybe somebody loves Blueprint here. I don't want to hurt anyone, but we had pain because of it, lots of them. And Declarative Service is a de facto standard in OSGi, so the question raises why we needed to move. For the following diagrams, I wanted to show what pictograms mean. This is an OSGi service, which is offered by a component, and the component has a reference that wires to another OSGi services. So this is how Declarative Services works normally, or built up. May I ask you how many of you use Declarative Services ever? Yeah, X numbers, so you will know what I'm talking about. Declarative Services supports building up our architecture in a software very well if we have references for a component, a business component or kind of component, and we need a log service, a data source, a cache, whatever references. So one reference, when it's there, then we are good to go. My issue was that when I have a servlet context, for example, and that is a component, and it had one reference which wanted multiple servlets. I couldn't do it with Declarative Services. It was not supported. There is a cardinality multiple in Declarative Services, but we couldn't use it because it made no sense for us just to have, we don't know how many servlets or all of them from the OSGi system. You can specify only one OSGi filter, and it wasn't fit to our needs. So instead, whiteboard pattern and whiteboard extender was introduced for OSGi, and I think maybe I'm the alone in the world who says that it's a workaround and it's not a real solution, it's more a workaround for a monolith architecture. Because it's monolith, because then everything is ruled by this system, who is the whiteboard extender. How a very clean architecture looks like in a system where everything is clean and nice and you know where to touch. that there are components and they are wired together. But normally there are multiple components and there are different wirings. And it's even worse, and it's getting worse and worse. I talked to other companies how many components they develop and they use in one project, and I heard numbers like more than 100, more than 200 sometimes. And where you have more than 200 components wired together, then it's getting heavy and you will be lost if something goes wrong. And if whiteboard pattern comes and something is missing, there is no exception, just something is missing because you work in a team with 5 colleagues and somebody changes something, a dependency, something goes out, then you really have to think what is missing. And you spend 1 day instead of 5 minutes to solve that issue, to debug your code, your own code. You know the system, though you don't know what's missing. But I don't want to blame only whiteboard pattern. It's about all of these technologies. For example, Areas JPA caused a lot of pain because we didn't know what was missing. It needs a data source, it needs a transaction manager, it needs, it needs one more thing I don't remember. And if you don't debug the code, you will not find out what's missing or know exactly how it works inside. And Blueprint is a kind of black hole. There is no information out. So there is these Blueprint events, but it's not enough. It wasn't enough for us to. I developed a web console plugin just to be able to see, and it uses an internal API of Areas Blueprint to get out some information. You can use it. It's on Wave Central. At least in that case, you will know which reference is unsatisfied in your Blueprint components on a screen. So that helps a lot, but it's still not enough. But also all of the extender patterns that doesn't give out information what's wrong cause a lot of trouble. So I could mention 5 more technologies if I had 10 minutes now to think. And, oh, I shut down the joke. So every day when we went to Scrum meetings and a 2 hours job took 2 days and after issues, we had very stressful meetings. So here's the manager guy, here is the developer, and here is the tester, and everybody is pointing to somebody else why the project is taking so long, why the estimated time is more than twice, I mean the implementation time is more than twice as much or 3 times more than the estimation. So here is this tester guys, and he's very angry because he writes tests, unit tests, but he doesn't know how to test the system because the extenders whiteboard pattern is used and components are starting up in the system, and there is already an HTTP connection he could test, but the components are not there, and he doesn't know how much to wait until he can run his tests. So what I needed really, that components are starting up, and when every component is started up, then the HTTP connection is opened because the Servlet Context component is satisfied, and then the test component can be started because it wires to the Servlet Context component. And I wrote an email to the OSGi mailing list about these issues in 2012 and asked for a reference where you can specify multiple OSGi filters. And I got back the answer, maybe somebody in the room wrote this answer, that Declarative Services is not a Christmas tree, so we'll not take any other, any special requirement into it. And I got really disappointed, and I thought it was time to implement our own component model. I'm sorry if I hurt anybody here now. So we started to think what was really missing from this concept. And what Declarative Services didn't support for us, that we have one reference and have the same type multiple times attached to that reference, getting it as an array, for example. And if I take down Declarative Services here, and we look at this picture only, I can change the words here and find another solution in OSGi where this is supported and Declarative Services wouldn't be accepted. And if I change the words, this is a bundle it has a requirement to package A, package B, or package 1, package 2, offered by the same bundle and maybe a capability from the same bundle. The wirings are like this, and this is how modularity works in OSGi on the bundle and package level and capability level, and it works very well, very stable, and you know always what's missing, where to touch, or where you need to look for something. Why isn't it used on component levels with OSGi services? That was we wanted to try out if our idea is right. So we started to develop. What we wanted to achieve is a Servlet context component first, and having this solution. But then the next question came up: what about filters? Because a Servlet context has filters as well. The issue is that if URL rewrite filter starts up or is called after authentication filter or whatever filter we need, then we will have a serious issue. So they have a starting order and calling order. We need to know in which order. So this is a kind of list that is ordered as well. And I can say another examples, lots of examples like this. This is not about only Servlet contexts and servlets. I was thinking, why is that, for example, that Apache Camel only supports Blueprint and Spring and technologies like that? And I think it's the missing feature that a component model, if a component model doesn't support ordered lists as service references, that technology just cannot be supported by that component model. So as soon as we have this feature, lots of technologies can be used. And how this would be supported, I don't know how much this can be seen from the back. Ooh, I might start a Zoom It application.
Red.
It's red, yes. Just a second, I forgot it. Has denied on file, but I will start it somehow. Ctrl-Shift-Z. Let's go back. I don't know if it works with PowerPoint, but let's have a try. Shift F5. No. Yeah, and we are there. And now we will see if it works. Sorry, I cannot make it bigger now. But I will explain, or come closer as friends. There is a connection factory.target. That's the way how we use declarative services. The difference is, that's the way how we use declarative services, that there is a target property and we can add an OSGi filter. And the thing here that we can add multiple filters because this is a configuration entry that is an array. So via configuration admin, we can specify multiple OSGi filters, and as many references will be used or as many servlet services will be picked up, as many entries we give here. If we give 0, then no reference will be there. We will get an empty array, okay? So that's optionality. It's optional, doesn't mean the same as in declarative services, but you can enter an empty array here. Now the next issue came, because always next issues were ahead of us. In whiteboard pattern, we specify, for example, URL mappings as service properties. Yeah, but what is the key of that service property? For example, Felix first added some keys that you should use these, then in the specification some other keys were used. So if you implement a component, it will work either with this implementation or that extender or whatever. You need to know who will use you. How can you write a reusable component if you need to know who can use you? So we thought that it's better to take the configuration up here to the reference level. So you can say that the URL mapping of this servlet is A, the URL mapping of this servlet is authentication N and authentication R. And how we did it, that there is this old log target, I mean this, not old, but this dot target property, and we specified a new one, it's dot close. And if this is specified, you can add additional attributes here. You can add the filter, but you can also specify the servlet name and init parameters. It's a close, it's the same as you use for import packages or for require capability manifest headers. So the syntax is exactly the same. You can know it. And you can see from the back that the solution is the same, that in configuration admin you can enter multiple lines or multiple entries to an array configuration entries, and you can here specify a close. I'm sorry, you cannot see from back, but the sites will be uploaded. And you can specify the port. This is a Jetty server where it will listen and everything else. Now, we had a lot of changes to the original concept, and we were thinking what other things slowed us down during development. We wanted to still to keep it simple as possible. So no interceptors, no magic, no nothing. Just make our life easier during work. And that's why we added 2 additional states. A component can have these states in declarative services or similar, but if the component has an error or it throws an exception in the activate method, then it's unsatisfied, and we don't know what happened just looking at the state. Therefore, we specified failed, and well, that was good in blueprint, that in the blueprint event the exception was there. So the state also contains the exception. So on web console, you will see that you can see the exception, what caused the component failure. Declarative services had 1 jar, and we were not sure if that's right we are doing. So we separated everything to different modules. For example, annotations, it's not directly attached to the core functionality. You can specify other annotations. Or if you need to just the reference functionality and know this component model, you don't need it at all, then you have this capability collector. That's what it does it. So for example, if declarative services wanted to have this reference type, then it could use this module. It's a couple of kilobytes, just this functionality that it tracks OSGi services and makes it sends a satisfaction event. What other thing slowed us down? In the activate method, the properties, the configuration entries were not type safe, and we always had to handle them. There are setter or bin methods for references, but no setters for configurations. So we made it type safe, string attribute or integer attribute, and you can specify it on the setter. And also, if it's new, you can set lots of things like optionality. It's optional if this is an object and not a primitive value. And there is one more thing here. It can be dynamic, which means that if that property changes in configuration admin, then the component is not restarted. Deactivate and activate is not called, but only the setter is called again. And maybe if you have an update method, that is called. It's a bit different from declarative services because there your whole component is dynamic or nothing. Here you can specify per property or per reference if it's dynamic or not. For example, the port where Jetty listens on might not be dynamic. Yeah, it is. But something else like the timeout of connections can be dynamic because you can set it on the fly. Now, and one more thing I just want to mention here, that there were references to OSGi services, but we needed one other thing, another reference type, which is very similar, but it references bundle capabilities. It's hard to explain. I should spend 10 minutes or 15 here why we needed it. Sometimes you don't need OSGi services, but XML files, which are addressed by bundle capabilities, so you can address them. And now let's have a, how much, when will we finish? I forgot to check the beginning.
6:20.
20. So I'm on time. 15 minutes. I'm the last one, so I can take 2 hours and always say that this is the last sentence, yes?
You can, but you'll be presenting to yourself.
Okay. I got the message. It was clear. So I brought a couple of solutions that are already implemented as reusable components. We uploaded to Maven Central because from now on we could implement reusable components like Jetty, a Servlet Context, and wire them together. So we started to upload them. I don't know how many of them are there, but you can find from data source, from persistence layer, caches, distributed caches, lots of things. All of them are called with ECM on the end. So that's how one can find it. And just let me